Yeah, I remember. Am I on? Or did I turn you off? Did I turn myself off? Testing, 1, 2. There it goes. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yes, I remember that trip to the mountain and the huge trees, and it was beautiful. But I think the most beautiful thing that happened that weekend was to actually meet Juan, and I didn't realize, Juan, that it's been 19 years.
No, it's been 24 years.
24 years. Look at that. So, you know, and that's what really matters in life. To have people in your life that matter to you, and they can be part of that journey. And I know he's been part of my journey, and I've been part of his journey. And I thank you for the opportunity that you give me to be here with your team. And, you know, when we talk about leadership, leadership is about giving yourself away to others. Some people grab into that position and they never let it go. Some people grab onto their gifts and they never share them. So the idea of being a leader is to be able to give yourself away. That is the essence of service. The essence of service is not what you do for others. The essence of service is the giving of yourself to others. Amen. You see, it's very easy to do things for other people. It's very different than to give yourself away to other people. I remember I was talking at a church, and I was talking a little bit about service, and I mentioned that it was time that we stopped talking about, oh, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock we're going to go and feed the homeless. And so I talked about that and what really service is about. Service is not about helping. Service is not about fixing. And I carried that through my message. And then at the end, I said, really, service is about the giving of yourself. Amen. And at the door, there was this guy waiting for me. And I kind of got scared, but it wasn't the first time that someone is waiting for me at the door after speaking. But he says to me, you know, Sergio, for the last 15 years, I've been feeding the homeless. And every Saturday morning, I go down to downtown Orlando and I feed the homeless. And then his voice the tone of his voice kind of got slower and kind of sad. And he says, you know, in all these 15 years, I've really never got to meet personally one of those homeless people. I've never asked them their names. 15 years. Taking the scrambled eggs, the potatoes, OJ, milk, cereal, putting up the tables, and simply feeding the homeless. So I said to him, so what are you going to do now? He says, I think I'm going to go down there and have breakfast together with these people. I'm going to serve them, I'm going to serve myself, and I'm going to get out of behind the table, and I'm going to choose one of these people, and I'm going to sit and have breakfast with them. That takes time. His time. And you know what? That's what it's about. And sometimes in church work, we love to do things. We just, as long as we don't have to give of ourselves away, we're good. So that has nothing to do with my message this morning. But you know what? Maybe it has everything to do with my message this morning. Because I want to share with you this idea of the joy of a holy life. And I am fully aware, and I want to acknowledge that joy may be contrary to a holy life for some. Because we think that living a holy life may just keep us from having all those joyful, happy things of life. So some people really don't want to enter that realm of a holy life because they won't get to do the things that they really like to do. Because being holy will just keep them away from that. But this is what Jesus said. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. This is Jesus in John 17, who is having this conversation with his Father. And he says, sanctify them. What does it mean to sanctify them? Then he says, and for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also may be sanctified by the truth. So it isn't just that you sanctify them, but there is also this thing about sanctifying myself, Jesus said. A big question is, why does Jesus need to be sanctified? Is he lacking something of this holiness? That they also may be sanctified. So there is a desire on the part of Jesus that we lived a sanctified life. And this next slide brings a lot of bad memories for me. And maybe for some of you. But I kind of grew up with this steps to salvation. And the older you get, the more you will remember this. The younger you are, you probably don't even know what this is. So take it as a little storytelling this morning. Okay? When you grew up, at least in my faith tradition, the way that you learn about salvation was the steps to heaven, or the steps to salvation. My ministry, I started my ministry with an evangelist that his one meeting, one of those meetings, one night was this, and he took the audience through the first thing to you is you confess. The second thing is that you repent of your sins, you confess your sins, you repent your sins, then you're justified, which in essence was that you were forgiven because you had confessed, because you had repented, therefore you were forgiven, you were justified, you were, for some people, declared justified, for other people you were made justified, and that's where in Adventism you kind of went two ways. But the scary part, okay, let me jump to the last one, glorification. Okay, glorification, that's where you really want to get. So you're kind of stepping up. You're confessing, you're repenting, you're justified. I'm going to jump over sanctification. And then ultimately, you are going to be glorified. That's life in heaven. That's where the steps were supposed to take you. So sanctification. Sanctification comes right after justification. And when they talked about sanctification, when my pastors at my church in New York City talked about sanctification, when my teacher at the academy where I went to talked about sanctification, it was always about this. You have to live a holy life. You have to develop this perfect character. Okay? Sanctification was always an issue of character development. So, you were forgiven, but, and that was a big but, you have to develop a holy life, you had to develop a perfect character. Because that was the requirement in order for you to reach glorification. One day living in eternity with God. Now, people would just explode with those thoughts about how, I remember being a pastor in Miami my first few years. One young woman, she attempted suicide. Her mom calls me at 5 in the morning. She says, Sergio, she's coming home. My daughter's coming home today. Last night she attempted suicide. She spent the night at the hospital. She says, can you come by and see her at home? So I went about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I asked her, Here I was a young pastor, and I'm faced with this young adult, not much older than I was, or younger, only maybe 3 or 4 years younger, and I didn't know what to do or what to say. And this is what she says to me when I ask her, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And for 2 hours, she told me her story. She says, when I was a little girl, my mom told me that I had to be a good little girl. And I tried very hard to be a good little girl. Then I went to the children's classes at my church, and they told me I had to be a good little Christian. And I tried very hard to be a good little Christian. And throughout my years in church, every class that I went to in Sabbath school, they told me that I had to be a good little Christian. Then I went to the academy, and at the academy, the Bible teacher told me, young people, you have to be good Christians. And then the speaker for the week of prayer would come, and he would also tell us, in order for us to receive God when he comes in the clouds of glory, we have to be good Christians. Then I went off to a Christian college, and my professors in religion would teach me that we have to be holy, that we have to develop a perfect character. And then the guest speaker for the college week of prayer, they would also go off. And then she said this, all my 24 years of life, I have been trying to be good. She says, I gave up. During that time, she would show up to church, and she would show up to church right as I was getting up to speak. Okay, so she would miss all the preliminary, and then she would leave while I was praying, doing the closing prayer. And now and then I would get to see her and or her family, and she would show up at other times at church. But this girl, literally, she had left the church. When I say had left the church, she had one foot in and one foot out. And on Friday nights, she would party herself into all kinds of experiences, only, and this is her, only to arrive at home and lie on her bed, look up at the ceiling, and feel totally empty with all the fun that she was supposed to be having in the world. Then she says this to me, and this has never left me. She said, Sergio, I have spent all my life in church trying to be good so that I can make it. Then I gave up that, and I went to the world, and I have spent all these last years trying to have fun in the world, and neither can I find joy there. So she says, I can't find meaning in life in church because I have to be good, and I am not good enough. Then I leave the church and go into the world, and you know what? I am better than everybody there. But in neither places did she find meaning. So she says, I have no reason to live. And that has haunted me all my years. The damage that we can do when we talk about sanctification. You don't know how many times I have been invited to speak at these so-called vigils. You know, maybe, I don't know if you ever attended one of those prayer vigils, or Spanish churches, they're big. Maybe in some Caribbean churches, they're big. But whatever, they talk about vigils because we have to get ourselves ready for the coming of Jesus. So I would always ask, so why are you having this? So that we can be ready when Jesus comes. So how many vigils must you attend? to be ready. And I would ask, when are you going to be ready? Ever? So we have this idea of sanctification that scares us. But there was the one thing that I remember when, as a kid, or now as a teenager especially, when they would talk about sanctification is, oh yes, we have to be perfect, but none of us can reach 100. But whatever we don't reach, what's going to happen? God will make up for it. That's the cop-out. Okay? So that was supposed to give you some sort of relief. Okay? So, well, you know, we have to be perfect, but, you know, if you have 50%, don't worry, because the other 50, Jesus will credit to your account. And if you have 75%, well, don't worry, because, you know, Jesus will put credit to the other 25%. It was sort of relief. It was a way to take out the pressure that the speaker was building up when we talk about sanctification. So sanctification for many is basically the joy killer of the Christian journey. It's like that thing you have in back of your mind that it haunts you, that gets your behavior, that gets to your behavior. Every time you misbehave, sanctification comes like a dark cloud over you. You better prepare yourself. Why are you doing this and that? So this morning, I want to take you somewhere, okay? I want to take you to what does it really mean to be sanctified or to live a holy life. There are three aspects of sanctification. And I want to read to you first this. In one occasion, Jesus says to a group of Pharisees, he says, of whom the Father sanctified and sent to the world. This is where the Father really is saying that he sanctifies the Son. The Father sanctified the one he sent into the world. Then Jesus said, and for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they may also be sanctified by the truth. The Son sanctifies himself. And then it says, Jesus, sanctify them by your truth, your word is truth. The Son sanctifies the disciples. So you have that dynamic of sanctification, of sanctity, of sacredness, of this idea of a holy life where the Father, the Son, and the disciples are involved in this experience of living a holy, sanctified life. There is a relationship. So, what is sanctification? Sanctification is a big word. Okay? The root of the word sanctification, sanct, is just another word for holy. In Spanish is santo. Santificación. Sanctification. Basically, it's a very simple meaning. It's the process, right, of becoming holy. Then we have to get one thing out of the way when we talk about sanctification. You're going to have to follow me on this one. Only God is holy. Amen. Leviticus 11:45 says, I am holy. Who is holy? God. The big question for us is, what's our relationship with this holy God? And what is this relationship that we have in this journey of sanctification? This is what we have to remember when we talk about being holy. No human being is holy or pure in themselves. So no matter how much we talk about holiness, when we say, oh, he's a holy woman, he's a holy man, nobody is holy, pure in themselves. God is holy, and that's his only exclusive attribute. We getting that? Okay. So with that in mind, Peter said to Jesus once, "You are the Holy One of God." So the Father is involved in being holy. The Son is involved in being holy. And the invitation is for us to be holy. But the only Holy One is God Himself. You are the Holy One of God. That is all related to God Himself. How does it relate to us? Let's look at Jeremiah 1:5. This is God talking about Jeremiah. He says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I did what? I sanctified you. And I did what? I ordained you a prophet to the nation." Look at the beautiful words that we have here. Okay? Formed. This idea of form is the idea of fashioning someone. Then he says, "I knew you. I sanctify you. I ordain you." There is this relationship that God has with Jeremiah. God is telling something to Jeremiah. He says, "Jeremiah, I know who you is. Jeremiah, I created you from the womb." Sanctified is being a person or thing belonging to God. And what God is telling Jeremiah, He says, "Jeremiah, I'm calling you to be a prophet." That's the last thing that He says. But the first thing that you need to understand is that I know all about you. I formed you. I fashioned you. I know you. You belong to me. At the core of being sanctified is this idea that you and I belong to God. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. When He says, "I sanctified you," He's saying, "I am setting you apart for you to be mine." I've been journeying through the book of Leviticus for my inspirational life, my journey. And then I just got into Numbers. And it's interesting how God would often say, "The people of Israel are mine. I want you to be holy because you're mine." The first thing that we have to learn about what the word sanctification means is that it has to do with this sense of belonging. I formed you, I need you, I sanctify you. I sanctify you. The ordaining to be a prophet is the last thing, because there's an additional meaning of what the word sanctification means. So God is saying, "I formed you, I knew you, I sanctify you, I ordain you." God owns you. He's got you. What it means is to be His. You are His possession. And this part of sanctification, for me, is foundational. This idea that I belong to God and He belongs to me. If that's all God did, well, I think that's all He wants to do. God desires us to know that all He wants is you and me as a person. He wants us to have us back. He says, "You belong to me. I can't live without you. You're my kid. You're my daughter. You're my child. You are my children. You belong to me." And as long as we respond to that invitation, that is enough for God. God desires more than anything to possess you.
Amen.
And if you let him possess you, just wait. What's coming?
Yes. Amen.
God desires to have you. Because if he has you, he has everything that he ever dreamed of having. That's it. So at the root of being sanctified, of being holy, is this idea that I belong to God and God belongs to me. There's an aspect that comes with that. And the idea is that sanctification is to be raised to the sphere of the Father, the divine sphere. When we accept that invitation for us to give ourselves to God, when we recognize, when we acknowledge that he belongs to us and I belong to him, it means that now I have a relationship with the Father and I begin to enter the sphere of a relationship which is a divine sphere, the divine sphere of the Father. I begin to experience God at another level. It is the level where God is sharing his life wholeheartedly with me. That's what it means that we belong to God and he belongs to us. When he has us, he opens up his world and he says, enter into my sphere, because I'm going to share with you who I am. And he does it willingly and wholeheartedly. It is in this sphere that we begin to learn from him and of him. It's about growing in him and allowing him to grow in you. If he has you, he's opening his life to you. It's entering that level of relationship. And that level of relationship, it is your own personal relationship with this God that passionately loves you. So God, I think, is more than just saying, hey, I want to develop my character in your life. I think he's saying, I'm going to share my life with you. I'm going to share my life with you. I'm going to give you everything that I am, so that you can experience me, so that you can see me, hear me, and feel me. Because that is the greatest need that we have. Amen. And if he has you, he has everything that he ever dreamed of. Am I making sense? Amen. But there's another part of sanctification that even for me gets better. In the book of 1 Peter, this is a very well-known verse. It says, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a what? A holy nation, a people for God's what? Own possession. There we go again, right? Not just personally, but as a nation, as a people, we are God's possession. He's got us. And if he has you, he has everything that he ever dreamed of having. So that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness and into what? His marvelous light. The sanctification involves this realization that you have been called and separated to be God's own. And then once God has you, he says, watch out now. Because now that you hang around with me, I am going to send you out. You have come to me, the marvelous light. You have seen the light. You are now light. You're with me. Now I'm going to send you. I am going to send you out so that you are chosen a priesthood, holy, and you belong to God. You're chosen. That's who you are. You are God's possession. Then he gives you a purpose. He takes who you are and he says, this is what you can do with your new life. Holy life is not a self-serving life. A holy life is not about me getting ready to meet my God. A holy life is not self-serving. A sanctified life, that is for a purpose. But some people just jump and they talk about you have been separated to do good works, or you have been separated to serve, or you have been separated to do this and to do that, without ever realizing that that sending comes from your living on another level of a relationship with God. You see? If this sanctification of being sent out isn't born there, all you're doing is working yourself up that ladder from the works that you do. Even though there may be good things that you do. But what God is saying is, I have separated you to be mine. And now that I have you, hey, you're going to collaborate with me in making a difference in my kingdom. Amen. You know, when I was in youth work, a lot of people, especially parents, would ask me, hey, would you pray that God will do his will in my life? And I was always kind of reluctant to honor that. Okay? God's will in my life. And I always would say yes, and say a word of prayer for that person. But it's the wrong prayer. Pray that God will reveal his will for my life. So, you know, as pastors, when I was a church pastor, I moved around 2 or 3 places as a pastor, and you always say, so what's God's will for my life? Where should I go? Right? And we say, man, should I do this or not? I remember in the transition in my life, I really had 2 options. So what do you do? So you're praying for God to reveal what is his will? So people say, well, you know, the president of a conference called you and says, you know, our committee met and we prayed about this and we think that it's God's will, so we're inviting you to come and work for us, right? Then the other conference calls you and they say, you know, we've been praying, our committee met and we've been praying for this and we think it's God's will that you come and work for us. That's kind of, that's a lot of humor in that, right? So they're both praying and I'm caught in the middle. And I'm asking God, please reveal your will to me. So this is what I believe now. When you realize that God has you, that you're his possession, that he is wholeheartedly revealing his life to you, he says, I'm going to let you decide where you want to go and serve me. So I'm going to give you 2 options. So where should I go? You choose. You choose. You know why? Because as long as he has you, you can go anywhere and he will use you. But if he doesn't have you, then you will always be praying, what is God's will for my life? Because you really don't want to do his will. You want to do your will. And you usually end up doing whatever you want to do. So, there is a sending out. Okay? There is this idea in sanctification that God has you, therefore he's going to send you out for a greater purpose. It isn't what you want to do, it is what he wants to do through you. He is putting those thoughts in your mind about life, about meaning, about mission, about love, about compassion. You wonder at times, how is it that your life is being transformed? Sometimes we don't even realize how that is happening, because God is just pouring himself out without you even realizing it. He is flowing in your life. He's giving himself to you. And when he has you, he says, I'm going to give you the options. Go, you do you. Look at what Jesus says here. He says, I sanctify myself. I sanctify myself. What is Jesus saying? Am I going to make myself holy? He's already holy. Peter had told him, you are the Holy One. What is Jesus saying here? You know what he's saying? I consecrate myself. I surrender myself as a sacrifice. In other words, Jesus is saying, I am going to fulfill the purpose I was chosen for. I am going to allow God to work through me, and I'm going to honor my Father, and I am going to do what I have to do. Because him and his Father, they were tight. I'll carry on with my mission no matter what sacrifice I have to go through. That's what Jesus is saying. I am setting myself apart. I am setting myself so that I will be able to be a person of integrity. I have this relationship with my Father, and I sense that he's working through me to fulfill his mission, to fulfill his will, and I cannot resist. And he says, I'm going to go through this. I am going to go through this. I am going to go through this no matter what. I am going to fulfill God's purpose. Not what is the purpose for my life. I am going to fulfill his purpose that he's working through me. I sanctify myself. But then Jesus goes further in this John 17. He says, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. So Jesus is saying, I sanctify myself, guys. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this no matter what. My Father has me. He has sent me here, and nothing will stop me. And then he says to his Father, Father, do the same for my kids. Do the same for my teenager disciples. Because the disciples were just a bunch of teenagers, guys. Maybe Peter was or Matthew were a little bit older, in their 20s. But some estimate that they maybe were 17 or 18. They were teenagers. Jesus says, Dad, Father, sanctify them. And if you know anything about this sanctification deal, Jesus left and they still weren't holy. They ran away when he was sacrificed. And Peter's language wasn't that clean, right? When he was surrounded by those questioning people. So Jesus says, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. What is Jesus saying here? Sanctify them by the Christ, which is the Word, and the Christ, which is the truth. Jesus is saying, Father, sanctify them through me. I am sanctifying myself. I am going to do this, Father. Please, Father, separate them so that they will do the same thing that I'm doing. Embrace them in the life of my mission. He embraces you and me. And he sets us apart. He says, you're mine? Here. In fact, if you read in John 17:9, he says, Father, those you have given to me. There's another part where he repeats the same thing. Those that belong to you, Father, you have given them to me. Now, please sanctify them. In other words, fulfill your dream, your purpose, your will through them. Do it. Embrace them under the reality of my presence with them. May they take me with them like I have gone with you. May everything that you do through me, do through them. May they not give up. May they be willing to sacrifice no matter what. Sanctify them. Isn't that amazing? Yes. This is the thing, guys. Whatever you have heard about sanctification, maybe you need to hear this morning. Sanctification is missional. You want to be really sanctified? Be on God's mission. Amen. Those people that wholeheartedly serve others in the name of Jesus, those people are truly holy. Why? Because they have this intimate divine relationship with the Father. The Father has them. Now, the Father sends them away. You be you. You go and fulfill my mission. No matter where you are. You know, I heard some prayer requests for a different job. Right? I pray that you get those jobs. So that you can be, yes, so that you can be light there. That's right. Amen. We don't have to go anywhere. We can fulfill God's mission where we are. Because we have that. You know, some people go on short mission trips like I do, and Juan takes a short mission trip with you guys, and some people take a year off, you know, to go on a mission assignment. What if your life is on a mission? What if you see yourself that you're on a mission, but it isn't just any mission? It is a mission that is born in the heart of God because God is fulfilling His will, His purpose through you. It's you realizing that you're part of a greater purpose in life. Yes. It's you realizing that you're part of God's kingdom that is beyond any denomination, any faith tradition. That the God you serve is the God of the universe that created the heavens and the earth. And you are in a relationship, a divine relationship with this God. And He's pouring Himself into you, and He says, I love you, you're mine, I am not going to let you go. Amen. And as a result of that, He says, now that I have you, I'm going to send you out. Sanctification exists for others. You want to be holy? Exist for others. Sanctification is being for others. Sanctification is not self-serving. You know, we all, going back to the vigils and all that stuff, and this character development thing that we often do, that we're so concerned about this or that in my character, that if I don't get this thing out of my life, God is going to keep me from his kingdom. So we strive very hard with those things. But what if you accept the declaration that God makes about you? I formed you. I formed you. I know you. You're mine. You're my possession. And let's surrender that to him and begin to live at that level. Then it is up to him to send us on a mission. So that what you do, it really doesn't matter. Okay? What do you do? What you find yourself doing, or the options that you have. I work at a system where people are continually moving. They go from one area, and I guess it's the corporate world. You know, this is new to all of me, and then there are people always finding something else to do. And that's okay, as long as you realize that you're a woman and you're a man on a mission. Amen. I'm on a mission where I work. If you ask me, so what's your mission? I don't know. I'm just on a mission. God is doing that through me. And now and then people remind me what I'm about. Oh yeah, that's you. They say things like that. Just the other day, I was talking to a guy, and one of the guy, I was talking to a guy he's new, and then he's telling me about his life, and then I'm listening to very carefully to what he's saying, and he's a guy who sings, and he was sharing that with me. And then one of my friends was standing next to me, and he heard me say to this guy that sings, you know, we're trying to put together a music ministry here on campus, and would you like to be part of? In fact, I told him, you're already part of it, because you work here. My friend tells me, you know, why is it that everybody you meet, you invite to be part of what you're doing? So it was like, I said, maybe that's why I'm on a mission. I look at people, and somehow in my heart there is this thing, this discernment that this person can be part of something greater. But I don't go around, oh, this is my mission in life, or this is my purpose, or this or that. No. What I care for is not what I do for God. What I care is what God does through me. Which I may never know the implications of that. I may never know.
Amen.
And neither will you. Being sanctified is not self-serving, it's serving others. That's where the joy comes. This guy right here on the screen, his name is Daniel. He is the person that I work with in Cancun, where we go on a mission trip. About 17 years ago, the pastor asked me, hey, would you come and meet Daniel and his little group that they meet, in this little hut in Cancun. This is in the outskirts of Cancun, close to 1 million people in Cancun. And he said, by the way, whenever I talk about going on a mission trip in Cancun, people laugh, so you may do that right now. And but let me tell you, this is what he showed me. This is where we found Daniel when we went to visit his church. That's the next slide. Okay? That's where they were meeting. He says, will you come and help us start building our church? So you see the length of the church? So I said, sure, we can come and help you. Yeah, we'd love to come next summer. And I said, okay, the church is going to be maybe that long and maybe, 15 feet wide or something. Small thing. Never did I dream that God was working through Daniel a plan that I could not envision. So what did Daniel envision? This. Okay, that's the front of the church. 5 years to do that. The first thing that we did for him was to lay the foundation. We were there just doing that. And I thought it was just going to be a small thing. Every year that we went back, he kept revealing part of the plan. So what does Daniel do now? He does mission trips on his own in Mexico. He does the same thing that I did, that I do every summer. They get T-shirts for the guys and for the team. There they are. They do community service. They take pictures like we do. He actually took everything that I do with our team, and he does the same thing. But he does much more. Just roll the slides. Much more. He goes into communities, and he holds programs for kids. I don't even do that. We just concentrate on buildings, because they said the greatest, stop right there, the greatest need that we have in Cancun is a roof for the churches, and that's what we do. So that's Daniel. This picture right here is when I was working at Altamont Hospital in Orlando, the Advent Health Hospital there. There were two young adults who worked, and they had been asked to do a creation health. This is a lifestyle plan that we have. Now it's called Creation. It used to be Creation Health, now it's Creation Life. And they asked if these two young ladies could give an 8-week seminar for foster children, the older ones. They would come into the hospital, and each week or every couple of weeks, they would present something about the 8 principles to these foster children. And they said, look, on the last day, would you come in and do like a 15, 20-minute presentation on meaning and purpose in life? So I do my little thing, okay, really fast. I invited my son-in-law, who's leading song there. He's singing for them. And then at the end, I said, I want you to think. I said to them, look, if you don't have a purpose in life, there are thousands and millions of people who will give you one. And we even talked a little bit about spirituality and how that it can be integrated in our lives and how it can give meaning to you. Then at the end, I asked him, now I want you to think, if you could find a mission in life for you guys, something that you can invest in. These are foster children, okay? These kids are not the regular kids who come from healthy families. They're living somewhere else. They don't have a home except where they're living. So I asked them to do that. And I was so emotionally when I read this. I gave them a newsprint like we gave the group last night, and I said, just put it there. This is what one kid said. To mentor, nurture, provide my undivided attention to foster care youth. That's what he wanted to do. Undivided attention. Another one said, lead the broken, strengthen the helpless, love the unlovable. These are foster kids. These are kids are broken. And within those 20 minutes, they caught something. that they put on paper, that they wrote, and then they said, hey, I want everybody to see it. There was silence in the room when those kids went up. I just chose two. Look at the one on the corner there. It says, be good, and I don't, Somehow, these kids caught a vision of who they could be in the world. The big question for you and me, what's your place in this world? What's your mission? Sanctification is being awake and aware of your place in this world. Is being awake and aware of your place in this world because you have a deep, intimate relationship with God and God is working through you. Is being able to say, I am here too. What are you here for? I told the group last night when I went through a crisis in my life, why do I exist? Why did I come? The God somewhere said, you're about leading people from disgrace to grace. And this grace is not these disgraceful people. It's disgrace those people that have no beauty in their lives. There is an absence of beauty in their lives. How can I lead them? When I discovered that, we went on a mission trip. Actually, I took a bunch of youth pastors to Cuba to hold 8 weeks of meetings there. The first Sunday I spoke, at the end of the meeting, this guy comes up to me. He said, hey, pastor, can I talk to you? Can you come by tomorrow? I said, sure. Let's meet here at the church at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so we met at 8 o'clock in the morning. This idea of leading people from disgrace to grace was very new to me. It had embraced me, and it was holding me tight. And then this guy poses this question. He started saying, well, Pastor, the question I have for you, I have asked people from the General Conference, people from Montemorelos University, these are all theologians, the GC people, they were all people, church leaders, people from the Inter-American Division, another organization, and I have never been satisfied with their answers. That's how he introduced. And I'm standing there under the Cuban sun in Holguín, in the yard of the church, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I'm the little guy, okay? I come from Miami. What am I going to tell him? So I said, okay, so what do you want to share with me? He says, what do you say about Adventist young people listening to folk Cuban music? There goes Celia Cruz, there goes all these Cuban artists, that's what I see, okay? That's where it's all the songs in your life, song is a rhythm, and all these bum, whatever, all this salsa, all of that stuff, he's saying has to go. This is folk music. What do you say, Pastor? Pastor. Let me tell you something. When you're on a mission for God, I don't know where it comes from. I really don't know. I'm just telling you because this is what happened. But it's not that I was processing anything. And I said, can you give me permission to tell you, to kind of rephrase what I think you're asking me? Okay, because he was saying that the young people in Cuba should not be doing that, right? Because they're not going to go to heaven. They're not going to be, they're going to miss a step in the ladder and they're going to be out. So, and he was one of the youth leaders. So I said to him, would you allow me to just ask you a question of what I think you're asking me? And sure enough, the guy says, "Sí, pastor, you can do that." And I said, I think what you're asking me is, what can I do? What is the one thing that I can do to lead my young people to a relationship with Jesus Christ so that they will spend eternity with their Heavenly Father? There was silence, like you are. Grace beat the heck out of this kid. Grace numbed him. Grace embraced him. He had no comments. We spent the next 2 hours talking about what he could do to lead the kids into a relationship with God. We never touched Ancelia Cruz, Glorita, Gloria, or the other Cuban people over there that are famous, all the great musicians that Cubans have produced. We never talked about that. When you're on a mission, you never know how you impact people. So, I want to invite you to embrace sanctification, to embrace the joy of a life. Clinton Brown, he wrote a beautiful song. Clinton Brown, I don't know if he's still a pastor, but he's been a pastor, and he's also been a worship leader and a songwriter. And he wrote this song, which I think is the essence of what I'm saying. It says, "I want to be more like you, Jesus. I want to be more like you." That's our heart's desire. But then it's the second part that comes with it too. I want to be a vessel that you work through. I want to be more like you. So as the praise team sings this song, and I want to give them permission, they can sing it and they can do anything with this song. They can sing it as many times as they want. When they're done, and then I'll just come up and have a closing prayer. Okay? So let the words of this beautiful song embrace you, because all of us want to be like Jesus, and all of us want to be a vessel that he can work through.
Jesus, I wanna be vessel you walk through. I wanna be more like you. Just the congregation say, I
wanna be more like you.
Sing
Jesus, I wanna be more like you.
It's gonna be all that you are.
I wanna be a vessel you work through. I wanna be more like you.
If you just believe, just raise your hand and say, I wanna be
a vessel you work through. I wanna be more like you.
Jesus, I want to.
I wanna be more like you. May the God that passionately loves you and desires you more than ever you could dream of, may you be fully His, so that you may discover that you are a vessel that He can work through. The blessing of the Lord, His grace, His love, embrace you warmly each day as you journey in life. God bless you.
Amen.